first thing that you want to do is pull out all your materials. So you have a little bag here that has a bunch of different kinds of beads in it, and it also has your needle in it. So you want to take that needle out. Okay, and I'm going to leave the beads in the bag just so they're not rolling all over my counter. And you have 2 pieces of big squares of felt. These are a 6-inch square of felt. So I'm going to start with the yellow one, and this is going to be the surface that we're going to stitch on. So to make it easier to stitch, you could just hand stitch on the felt, but because it's so soft and movable, we have included the hoop inside your kit. So what you're going to do, we're going to put the fabric inside the hoop, and this is going to pull it and hold it nice and taut so that it's easier to work with. So the first thing you're going to do is the little screw that's at the top here, you're going to just loosen that off. Okay, and what you should notice is that the outer hoop starts to expand as you loosen it, and then you're able to slide the center hoop out. So the center hoop is slightly smaller. Okay, so you want to loosen it off. Don't unscrew it so far that the little nut comes off. You just want to loosen it enough to be able to pop that hoop out. Okay, then you're going to take the smaller hoop, set it down on the table, lay your piece of felt directly on top of it so that it is nicely centered, and then you're going to take your outer bigger hoop and you're going to press it down over top of the felt and around the small hoop. So the small hoop has now fit inside, and it's pulled the felt nice and tight across the surface. So this is actually going to be the surface here that we're going to stitch on. So I'm just going to tighten this up a little bit. It doesn't need to be tightened too much. It's pretty snug now that the felt is in there. Okay, so now we are ready to go. So I am going to be using a red embroidery floss here. So I'm going to take out a little bit of my string. So I'm going to unwind it. So you don't want to use a really huge piece to start with. It's a little bit easier if the pieces are a bit shorter. So I am going to snip off a smaller piece. Okay, so about 18 inches long. Okay, and now I'm going to thread my needle. So one little trick that I like to do. Okay, so I'm going to take the embroidery thread, and I'm going to just lay it on my hand here. So I want to lay it right across this nice little kind of bump on my hand. Then I'm going to take the needle, and I'm going to use the loop side, and I'm going to press it down right on top of the thread. And then I'm just going to wiggle it back and forth on top of the thread. And what you will notice is as I do this, the thread actually pops up through the loop, and then I'm able to pull it through really easily to thread it. Super simple way, works really great for kids, but it's also good for adults. Okay, so easy way to thread. So just lay the string on your hand, take the loop, rub it gently on top of the string, and it will pull the string into the loop, and then you can pull it through, and it is threaded. Ready to go. Okay, so I am going to pull my thread down to the end. So I'm going to have my 2 ends meet up. So what I'm going to do is take those 2 ends, and I'm just going to tie a little loop knot in the ends, just like that. Okay, so now I have my needle on, I have a knot at the other end, everything is nice and secure and ready to stitch. Okay, so I'm going to start with just a basic line stitch. So what I want to do, I want the knots and all the messiness to be on the back side, which is going to be where the smaller hoop was. So I'm going to start by taking my needle, and I'm going to come from the back side, and I'm going to press my needle up through the felt and pull it through. And that little knot is going to hold the thread in place and keep everything nice and secure. Okay, so the next step is I'm going to take my needle, I'm going to move over slightly, maybe about 1 centimeter, and I'm going to go down into my felt. And then I'm going to pull the needle through and pull the thread through, and there's my first stitch. Okay, so now I need to continue. I want all my stitches to be in a nice straight line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the back. You can see where the thread has come out from my last stitch. So I'm going to take my needle, and I'm actually going to move just a hair over from that last stitch, and I'm going to press it right back through so that I come out the other side, and you can see how closely spaced they are. You want to get nice and close together. And then I'm going to go down again, making my next stitch. Okay, move over slightly, come back from the bottom, back down through the top, up through the bottom, back down through the top. So you're going to repeat this over and over and over again, and you don't necessarily have to always go in a perfectly straight line. If I want to turn my lines and maybe have them come around in a circle, or I want to do a shape, all I have to do is come up from the bottom, okay, And instead of going straight across and making another line, I'm going to move and come down this time. Okay. So you can see now my lines are going straight down. So I'm going to continue going down in a straight line, just like that. Okay. Now I can also, if I want to kind of change my shape a little bit, I can do a zigzag stitch. So I'm going to come up from the bottom. Okay, and instead of going in a perfectly straight line and continuing this line of stitches, what I'm going to do is I'm going to zig off to one side, just like that. And I'm going to come back up from the bottom, and this time I'm going to zag in the other direction. Okay, and I can continue on zigging and zagging, okay, from one side to the other, and create all kinds of fun shapes. Okay. Now you guys have a whole bunch of little beads and fun things in your kit as well. So I'm just going to show you how to attach some of those. Okay, so I've got a few little beads here that I want to incorporate. So all I'm going to do is take my needle and I'm going to thread that bead on. Oop. Thread that bead on, pull it all the way down until it is on my felt. And then I'm going to push my needle down through my felt to secure it on. So you can see that bead is now attached. And then you just carry on just like you were with the rest of your stitches. So there's a couple different ways that you guys can work with your stitching kits. We didn't include any patterns because it's kind of fun just to do your own thing and really freestyle. So you can just create a fun little abstract stitching scene here, all just lines and colors and beads. If you wanted to do a shape, what I would suggest is taking a fine marker, a little Crayola marker works really good. And what you can do before you start stitching is you can go on and you can draw the shape. So maybe I wanted to do a heart on this one. I could go in and draw my heart on with a marker, and then I can follow those lines with my stitching. Okay, so once I get to the end of my thread, I still got a little bit left here. I could go a little bit longer, but once I get to the end, what I want to do is take my scissors and I want to cut, but I want to leave a nice tail. Okay, so you can see how I have this nice tail at the back. Always snip the stitches at the back side so you keep all the knots and all the mess at the back. Okay, so I've got this nice little tail. I'm going to take these two ends. Okay, there's my two ends. And I'm going to tie one knot. I like to tie a couple knots just to make sure it is good and secure. 2 knots, we'll go 3 just for safekeeping. Whoop. And 3. So now I have a nice big knot in there, and all these little tails you can trim off after. So all the knots and everything stay in the back, and all of the nice stitching stays on the front. Okay, and you also have a couple other little elements that came in your kit, including some of this fun pink sparkly mesh and some extra felt. Oh, and some extra thread as well. You've got this fun speckled thread, which is really cool. So what I'm going to do is show you how you can incorporate some of these extra elements. So with the small piece of purple felt, you can cut this up into little shapes and attach them onto your stitching as well. So what I did is I took my scissors and I have cut out a little purple triangle. And I'm going to stitch that triangle right onto my project. So I have a fresh piece of thread and I am going to start by laying my triangle down on my yellow felt, okay? And I want to make sure that when I come up from the bottom, I can see the triangle through it. I want to make sure I come up through the bottom and that my needle comes through the purple triangle. Okay. There we go. Okay, so it's come through the yellow and through the purple at the same time. Okay, so I'm going to come up through, and now I'm going to stitch right along the edge of this purple triangle to secure it on. Okay, so I'm going to go back down, and I have to go through the purple triangle and the yellow, so I've come right out the bottom. There we go. Okay, and back up through both, so I'm going to find where my last stitch was. Okay, back up through the yellow and the purple, and back down through both. And this is going to secure my purple triangle right onto my yellow felt, okay? And you can create any shapes you want. It doesn't have to be triangles, it doesn't have to be even shapes, it can be squiggles, it can be lines, it can be anything you want. This is your project, so be creative, and there's no wrong way to do this. So if you want to cover the whole thing with purple and stitch over top of it, you go right ahead and do that, okay? So I'm going to show you, there's my last little line stitch. So I stitched a nice line on one side. Now I'm going to show you something fun that you can do around the edges. So this time, instead of going down through both colors and going along the edge again, I'm going to zig off to the side so that my stitch is half on the purple and half in the yellow. And I'm going to come back through, and I'm going to go down through the purple and the yellow together. So my stitch is half on the purple and half on the yellow. And I'm going to continue to go from yellow to purple and have all of my stitches be half and half, which is kind of fun, just a different way of doing it. Okay. And I think it might be time for a bead. So I have this fun little sparkly one. Stick that guy on there. And continue on with my stitches. There's my bead. Awesome. Now there's a couple ways when you're done that you can finish this off. So obviously I'm going to snip off my string and leave a little tail and make sure I tie a good knot in this. When you have a finished piece, you have a couple ways that you can leave it. You can take it off of the loop and have it just be displayed like that, just a nice flat piece of stitched artwork. Or the other thing that you can do is, if you really like it in the hoop, you can leave it in the hoop and use the hoop like a little frame. So what I would do with this guy is I would take my scissors. I'm just gonna snip that off so you can see a little bit easier. I would take my scissors and I can trim all of this extra felt off of the sides. Just like that. And then I can take and hang this on my wall or hang it wherever I like and just have it displayed in